Hello everyone, welcome back to Touch the Fire Twice. I'm Joshua and I'm here today with an in-depth sniff comparison and review of the Bath & Body Works 3-wick candle Dark Amber and Oud. This is part of the early spring 22 collection, currently out with about 7 scents, I want to say. So you've got the Dark Amber and Oud, Endless Weekend, Eucalyptus Rain, White Tea and Sage, Coconut Sandalwood, Cinnamon Spice Vanilla, and Raspberries and Whipped Vanilla. Thanks to Becky Z, commenter on the haul video, where she said that she works at Bath & Body Works, and internally they refer to this collection as just the White Bar Neutrals. So just naming the collection based on the packaging, which makes sense because there's really no cohesion to the scents that are within it. Doesn't seem like it's necessarily fan favorites or greatest hits. It's just mostly returning scents with a couple of new ones. I do overall kind of enjoy the aesthetic. It's something a little bit different than normal, different than their traditional core White Barn collection. And I do like when they try new things, because a lot of times we're seeing, repackages and things at Bath & Body Works. So there's some new stuff in here. For me, not a lot of favorites for me. I purchased 2 from this collection, probably the only 2 I will purchase. And I really want to get in depth with this one specifically because it is, I believe, a new blend for Bath & Body Works. However, it is reminiscent of some other things. Yeah, let's just talk about it. So the first thing being I'll talk kind of the notes on here. I'll talk a little bit about, what is amber, what is oud, what are we expecting to smell when we smell this. And then I have 3 older candles from Bath & Body Works White Barn that I'll compare this to. None a straight up repackage or dupe, but it's kind of one of those things where if you know that candle, then you might have a sense of what this is, or just kind of comparing and pulling them apart. Again, kind of what I find interesting. So I will say I burned this for 3 hours or so. I trimmed the wicks after burning, but burned it for 3 hours. Really good pool, as you can see here. Good burn. Solid throw. I'd say a lot of times with these kind of candles that are the heavier candles that have, traditional deep fragrance notes like amber or oud or sandalwood or things like that, you often will expect a really heavy throw and, to kind of choke you out in the corner and just be really intense. This wasn't that. It was solid. It had a good scent. It filled up, my large rec room, but it wasn't overwhelming, which is also good for scents like these. You don't want them to really overwhelm to where you don't even enjoy them. So really, what is, dark amber, or what is amber in scent, and what is oud? So I knew somewhat, and also did some research because I find that interesting when I share with you all. So amber, usually in body fragrance, home fragrance, whatever it might be, usually smells sweet and rich. It's a compound, it's not just one thing. It can smell powdery and dry with like that pale white feel that you sometimes see where it's like, sheer amber. It can be drippy and dark. It's considered generally to be warm, lightly sweet, usually musky and rich, could be a little powdery, kind of a little bit of spice. And there are generally 3 categories of amber, a white amber, sweet amber, and dry amber. Dark amber, I don't know if that's just maybe some BBW marketing, but your white amber is usually lightly sweet, clean, almost like an ozonic or ozone touch to it. It's not white musk. But they're similar for that light, clean, sparkling feel. Your sweet amber is the most common, so I bet a lot of the signature collection with Bath & Body Works is the sweet amber, kind of a resinous, like vanilla type aroma with some depth and roundness, almost in kind of your tonka. And then dry amber tends to have sort of the resinous vanilla to it, but it gets, of course, drier, almost grassy or sandy feeling to it. It's said to smell like air with a very low humidity, if that kind of paints a picture. So that's what you're thinking with amber. Of course, they just say dark golden amber, fresh rainwater is another one, and oud wood with natural essential oils. So that is what you can expect with amber. I think that's a fragrant note that most of us are familiar with because so many fragrances, high-end, low-end, mid, across the board, candles, body fragrances, fine fragrance, amber appears as base notes throughout all of those. When it comes to oud, I mentioned this briefly in the last video. Oud really is, so it's typically from the agarwood tree, and when a certain type of mold, like a parasitic mold, infects the tree, or when there's damage, I think physical damage to the tree, it actually reacts by producing this musky scented resin. It's sort of its defense mechanism. And then that sort of resin, that liquid, sometimes they actually refer to it as liquid gold, gets distilled and turned into the oud fragrance. So it's from the Southeast Asian agar tree. Oud in Arabic actually translates to the fat of the wood. So, oil coming out of the wood makes sense, fat of the wood. It's a woody smell, very nuanced. It can be sweet, it can be earthy, it can have some notes of leather, some spices. They say it depends on really the specific species of the tree that produces the resin and the technique used for extraction. Of course, here, oud is a very, very expensive scent or oil, so we can anticipate that we're getting synthetic oud in here, not a real actual oud oil, essential oil. But they actually say that when it's this musky scented resin, that it's kind of animalic, sensual. But some people almost get turned off by it because it's too heavy or just too musky, I suppose. Of course, they're not going to throw something like that in the candle. I have Atelier Cologne. There's an oud sapphire or oud saphir that is heavily on the oud, and I love that. I could not find it in my cabinet to sniff today, but if I find it and can add some notes to it or another video, I will. But really, really enjoy oud. As it says, it's very complex typically. So knowing that going in here, and of course mixing your dark golden amber with your oud wood and fresh rainwater, that can mean many things. It's typically just, it's one of those compound fragrances that they pull in many different scents to get the idea of what rainwater is like, whether that's kind of dewy and sweet or wet, or that ozone scent after a rainfall, that sort of thing. Forest vibe. So anyway, that said, I'll get into sniffing this. So immediately with this one, it is much lighter than I expected it to be, because dark amber and oud, I thought it was going to be heavy. Think of your fireside, some of the really in-depth, almost smoky scents, or heavy on the leather, or very, very deep and dark, with the name dark literally in the candle name. And it has those to it. It has that sort of the sort of traditionally, men's collection, cologne-y vibe. I really don't like to gender sense, and even cologne versus parfum is not gendered. It's about the literal percentage or ratio of fragrance oils, the strength of the scent in there. And cologne originally, it was actually primarily all citrus-based blends in Cologne, Germany, in ye old times, when cologne was first created to literally mask bad body smells. So when you think cologne, it's not cologne, men and, perfume women. And beyond that, anyone can wear anything they want if they like it. So to that. However, when you think of the, traditional quote unquote cologne sense, or the men's collection of Bath & Body Works, if we want to keep it, sort of simple, this is something that could appear there. But it is much lighter than I expected. It's very, very fresh. They do say fresh rainwater. And actually on the Bath & Body Works website, they said it is like walking through a forest after freshly fallen rain, which they don't list here, but I mean, it's clear enough. So what does it smell like to me? It smells like, if you were in a barber shop and there was a decent quality, made for, the typical enjoyment of men's collection, whether it's, shaving cream or a hair conditioner or beard oil or deodorant, whatever it might be. It does have something like that, but very, very fresh. So there's a little bit of musk to it. I don't really get leather. I don't get anything super dark. Doesn't, take your breath away. It's more fresh than anything, almost like an old-fashioned kind of Barbasol shaving cream or aftershave, where there is something that is clearly deep and dark in that, not just fresh and herbal or fruity or whatever that might be. There is something that leans toward, woody and deeply aromatic and slightly musky, or that sort of amber, that drier note to it, besides just something botanical and herbaceous and astringent or something. It's a bit drier, right? So definitely get some of that, but that fresh rainwater is that's very much the top note, and goes into the middle notes with this for me, where it continues throughout. So if you're turned off by, I don't, amber and oud, what is that? It's gonna be too heavy, too masculine, too manly, too whatever. First of all, throw that idea away in general, but also throw away the idea of what you think that means for the scent, because it is very fresh with some depth of those darker, musky, earthy notes. It's not a heavy earth or a dirty, or it doesn't even lean toward your patchouli or incense. It's more of a fresher earth. That said, there are 3 candles, don't want to take too long for this video, 3 candles that I compare this to that it's, I'd say they could live in a collection and it would be a cohesive collection. So first one is Oak Moss and Vetiver. This came out early 2013. I'll link here, I did a video review of 4 candles that were in this collection, kind of an herbal woods collection at Bath & Body Works. It was a failed test collection, or just a test collection of 4 scents, 2 of which ended up going wide later that year with those names and then became other scents. So this was Oak Moss and Vetiver. There was also a Sandalwood Citrus, Sage and Cedar, and White Water Birch. The Sage and Cedar then became known as Black Tie. So Black Tie started out as Sage and Cedar. Oak Moss and Vetiver didn't turn into anything, and Whitewater and Birch, another one here, didn't turn into anything. To my knowledge, they were just their test scents, and I don't think they brought them out as anything else. The Oak Moss and Vetiver was listed as infuse your home with a luxurious blend of oak moss, vetiver, and lavender. And this one, oh boy, it's really lovely. I'd be fine if they brought that back instead of this dark amber nude. But it's got that same, I'm not going to go too deep into vetiver. We know what vetiver is. Oak moss, it's sort of like, it's earthy, but it's a little bit sweet. It's a little bit green. It's kind of wet, but it's got a heaviness to it. These 2 are quite similar in execution. I wouldn't say there's like necessarily lavender in here, but there could be some oak moss in here when they're talking about a wet, a rainy forest. There's probably some oak moss on the floor of that agar tree where the oud is coming out of, supposedly. Just really feels like this could be something that is in, a barber shop or a men's spa or something like that, or a women's spa or anyone's spa who wants this. But again, thinking of the traditional way that fragrance is often marketed, at least. And the next one, Whitewater and Birch, very similar. This one is a clean blend of marine notes, woods, and a bit of citrus. So again, along the lines of the marine notes of the rain and some woods. This one's much cleaner, brighter, sharper with that citrus. And between the 2 of those, the Oak Moss and Vetiver, oh, there's a light little sweetness to that. That's really, really nice. That this doesn't have. This is a little bit more singular note, a little darker. This one has a bit of a vibrancy to it that I love, but still like similar, like they're like maybe 40% of the same base with like some different top notes added. So that's nice. The Whitewater Birch, to me, they're honestly, those 2 they're similar but different. So that's where they really could work in a cohesive collection altogether. This one, they both smell like, again, barbershop scents, or like honestly the old-fashioned Barbasol. Really get a lot of that scent from them, and I get part of that, like again, 40% of that brought into here. So a little bit of that like shaving cream or men's shower gel signature or whatever collection note, versus when I think of dark amber nude, I was thinking, oh, is this gonna be like a library with like a leather chair and like tobacco leaf and cigar and just something very dark and rich and old world. Not so much, it's a little bit more fresh than that. Speaking of freshness, that then brings me to the other scent that reminds me a lot of this, again, not as a duplicate, but just in execution. This is Eucalyptus Mint and Rain number 6. This was also a failed test collection from back in 2012. There were 8 of these. I believe I also did a video, I'll link here, if so, on these where I purchased most, but not all of them, and it was like Eucalyptus, Mint, and Rain. One was with spice, vanilla, guava, I think maybe lavender, like across the board. It was eucalyptus mint because it was so popular at the time, the traditional aromatherapy eucalyptus mint, with a million other add-ons to it, and some of them were really, really good. This one actually did end up coming back as Eucalyptus Rain, which we see now all the time. The original notes in this: the cooling scent of raindrops is a perfect match for invigorating eucalyptus mint, creating a lush, fresh fragrance. Now, this doesn't have really eucalyptus or mint, but the rain accord that they used in here. So when it's like, okay, we're not actually collecting rain and distilling it in something, but it's an accord. So it's different notes brought together to make an accord that makes you believe, oh, it's like rainfall. So it has the rain note. So if you know, like I think everyone knows Eucalyptus Rain at this point. In fact, it exists in this collection, Eucalyptus Rain. There's maybe like 20-30% of this has that freshness. So it pulls in the freshness of the Eucalyptus Rain. It adds in some, again, let's call it shaving cream, with a little bit of, that shaving cream that's going to be earthier, more musky, heavier. And that's really what this candle is. I appreciate using the naming mechanism of using oud. They typically wouldn't put, oud in the name of a candle because most people are like, what the heck is oud? What do I care about this? And am I gonna even bother sniffing it? So I appreciate that they were going for some authenticity there versus just calling it, some silly name that doesn't mean anything. So all wrapped up, again, I enjoy it. I wouldn't repurchase it most likely. It's interesting, it works for now, but I would recommend checking it out if you do like those sort of very fresh, intense, somewhat earthy, again, I'll still call it like spa, shower, shaving cream scents, then I think you would actually enjoy this. Let me know what you think if you sniffed this or burn this, or if there's anything I was missing as far as what you think it may be similar to. And until next time, everyone, take care.